Hello, my YouTube world. This is Johnny Moe coming to you today with a video on the ICD deck. I've gotten a lot of requests about this video. I've done this video several different times. People say they can't find it. So I am now going to do this video. It's going to be official. How I set my deck up. Very first thing when I do is when I get this mower, I take the stripe kit off. Take the stripe kit off and I make sure that the deck is level and pitched properly. On the Ferris mower, they should be pitched about 1/4 inch from front to back. So front should sit 1/4 inch lower than the back. Why take the stripe kit off? Johnny, why you take the stripe kit off, Johnny? Well, it's because of this grass right here. Let me find it. Coarse fescue, my favorite grass in the Northeast. It's not hard to cut, but as you can see, it's bigger blades and it grows everywhere. And there's some lawns, the older lawns are 20 years and older, this will be taking over because this is a late stage grass where the rye and the Kentucky blue is starting to fall off and this grass takes over. As you can see, this grass is growing that way, that way, that way. Now, when I mowed this lawn, it went that way. The mower went from back to front. As you see, if you have a stripe kit on, it'll pick this grass and stick it straight up in the air. So when you look back, you have a bunch of stringers, especially if you're cutting that particular type of grass. So, having said that, that's why I take it off. That's a Northeast thing. You might not have that problem down in the South. Might not even have that problem in Maryland. You know, I'm on the very edge of the Midwest and the Northeast. Coarse fescue lawns are pretty predominant up here, especially in the older neighborhoods. So, having said that, if you're going to demo a Ferris mower, there's some things that you need to ask the guy before you take hold of it. You need to come with a tape measure. You need to make sure that your lawn, your deck is cutting at what it says it is. This deck is on 3 3/4 right there, but it actually is cutting at 3 1/2. It's 1/4 inch off. Those are big. My Toro was, if it was on 3 1/2, it was cutting at 3 1/2. So if I came in there on a weekly cut and I was cutting 1/4 inch lower than I was last week, you're gonna say, "Oh, this deck performs like crap. This sucks." The truth of the matter is, you just might have had the wrong setting. Another thing you want to do is consider, as you see, my shocks are set in the highest settings, the stiffest settings. What a lot of they'll do is they'll make it the lowest setting of the shock range so that you'll have that real bouncy, nice, cushy feel. The problem with that is you could get some deck scalping when you're going really, really fast and you stop. The whole machine sinks in the front. Now, I know they say the deck comes up when these sink down, but it will scalp. I have no scalping issues with my shock set at this. Again, as you guys know, 250 plus, 6'2". I have all my shocks in the highest setting. So this shock here, when you get it, is right here. I moved it back in the upwards position and I set the shock itself at the highest position because this bagging system was on it. And when that bagging system was on it, you have to have that shock set up at a high position. Just some things letting you know about the Ferris mower. Now, if you're demoing the Snapper Pro, you don't have to deal with you have to deal with the ICD deck, but you don't have to deal with the shock setting. Here's my little wonder, but I'm not going to get into that because I want to make this video for my subscribers so that they know exactly what I do. So what happens in the fall? In the spring. In the springtime, these are the blades that come on the ICD deck. In the springtime, when the grass is growing so much, these blades have so much air suction that it just makes a mess out of the lawns. And you can't clean it up. It's just a mess of a lawn. And what happens is you try to go over it and the front tires the deck truly really doesn't throw many clumps, only when it's really, really wet. What it does is it leaves the lawn real thick like a hayfield. And then when you try to go over it, the front tires just push that thick grass down in further and it just leaves a mess. So these blades in the springtime, when you're dealing with thick, overgrown, fertilized grass, it's just a mess. Like these blades have a lot of suction on them. And this particular deck does need a lot of suction. So what I did is I called the factory a couple times. I couldn't, it was just cutting really bad. And so I had an old Ferris With the old style deck, the square, instead of the slanted front, it had the square deck. And these are the blades that came on that deck. These are more like Exmark blades. It's about the same fan size as opposed to, as you can see, there's that much more. There's this much more fan than this one. This just has this little one. Now, in the spring when the grass is growing real high and real thick, you can put these, this does not generate a lot of lift. And what happens is it just gets it out of the deck really, really fast. This seems to keep it in the deck and chop it up more. These blades seem to just chop it and get it out of the deck. And now you'll deal with longer clipping sizes from this blade, but this one chops it up a little bit more because it keeps, there's so much suction, it just keeps it inside the deck longer, chopping up. These blades here, I run all of the spring. But what happens when you start getting into 80-degree temperatures, this grass starts to go limp a little bit. It doesn't like to stand straight up. And so what happens is these blades are not good in the summertime when it starts to dry out because it doesn't have enough lift to lift the blade and cut it. So you have a lot of lawns, especially the bent grass and the fine fescue lawns, where these blades just when the deck goes over them, they don't come back up in the chamber and they don't suck it back up. So I go back to these blades. These blades will suck it up and cut it cleaner. So as far as part number, I don't know, but here's a number on these blades if you want to pause it and take them, and you can try it for your area. It changed the ICD deck completely for me. The ICD deck became one of my most favorite decks of all times, just because I changed to these blades. So I use these in the spring, up to about June. And once the 80-degree temperatures start, the grass really starts to become more manageable, because up here, the cool season grass hate when it gets 85. It starts to fall over. It doesn't stand erect anymore. Still green, but it just becomes thinner and more wispier, and that's where you need these blades. I've been running these blades in the fall because of the wet conditions. The wet conditions, what's happening is that the deck is just pushing the grass over. The grass is so wet and heavy and thick that these are not doing a very good job of lifting it back up and cutting it. So I had to put these back on and been dealing with the fall conditions that way. I do not like that I have to do this for the ICD deck, but it really works well for me in my situation. And it's really made the ICD deck one of the best cutting decks in my area for me. I do like the fact that Exmark and Toro, they give you a blade that's like this. It creates enough suction, does a great job. But that's what I have to do with my ICD deck, and I really do like my ICD deck. Now, right now, I'm running these blades right here. These are I believe these are my G6. These are my G5s. This is my G6 set, and this is what I chop up leaves with. And they run fine on the ICD deck. I have no issues with it. I do remember putting these on my Exmark deck back in the day, and they did not cut very well at all. So these are basically just fall cutting. I don't run these in the summertime. It creates too many clumps, and it's harder to clean up the clumps, especially with the ICD deck with these particular blades. That's just my opinion. You might run them all year long. I know guys that do. That's just not my thing. So these are only in the fall, from late October till I finish up around Thanksgiving. I take this shut-off plate that's right here, and I put these on. I shut the plate off. I go over the leaves. These do an awesome job doing it. These do not cut leaves well at all. In fact, they're terrible, especially these. These are the worst for leaves. I mean, they go through the deck once, and they'll come out. Like this leaf right here that's in here, it'll go through the deck and just cut it one time and leave it that way. So, guys, that's my time. That's all I have time for. I hope that answers a lot of questions for you. You can get the part number off the back of this blade if you just pause it. The deck comes standard with this. I had to buy these extra, but I had a whole bunch left over from the old style fair, so I just run them. As you can see, I mean, look, they're just about all the way back already. These are a little bit newer, but you can see that this has been really run. I mean, there's not much left to them. I'll probably sharpen them up for another year, and that's it. All right, guys, have a good one.